So that deals with its antibacterial activities. Why is it hypotensive? Now, a little bit of physiology now. There's a picture of the sort of arteries that you've got in your body. And the thing to note about it is this part here, which is muscular. Now, if you want to get more blood going to a tissue, you relax these muscles, the artery enlarges, and more blood flows. If you can't do that, if you can't relax these muscles for some reason, then the heart works harder to get the same amount of blood, the extra amount of blood to the vessels. But if you enlarge the vessel, the flow can occur without the heart having to do a lot of extra work. So controlling the relaxation of these muscles is very important in terms of our blood pressure. Now, there's a messenger molecule that tells these muscles to relax. And no one knew what the identity of that was until 1987. So this is recent stuff. And it's a substance called nitric oxide. A very simple molecule, NO. And can you see that nitrite, nitrate, and NO form a sort of family? Sort of. Being economical with the truth. And that's why it works. So let's go through this, where we got to so far. Nitrate in the vegetable, converted into nitrate, nitrite in the mouth. It enters the bloodstream. It reaches the tissue in need of oxygen. It's converted into nitric oxide by an enzyme. And the nitric oxide signals the muscles to relax, and more blood flows to the tissue. Now, as I said, that was really discovered, that particular aspect of the subject was really only discovered in the late 1990s. So this is even more recent work. In fact, we've known for some time that something like this occurs. Now, there's a gentleman who's suffering from angina, which means he can't relax these muscles properly. He's lost the ability to do that. Now, he's a gentleman of unseemly lifestyle, in the sense that he's overweight, he's in a hurry, and he's agitated. Exactly the conditions under which you get an attack of angina. So what does he do? He takes a puffer out, which can contain a substance called amyl nitrite. They don't normally do that now because it's been replaced, but at one time that was the treatment. And so we've known for a long time that nitrites would in fact lower the blood pressure. Oops. So that really sums up where we've got to so far. I'll leave you to read it. It's very annoying when people read out slides more slowly than you can read them, so I'll leave you. That sums it up. Now, in fact, it's been known for a very, very long time that nitrites will cause lowering of the blood pressure. Now, the Chinese, a most remarkable race, knew a lot about potassium nitrate, because they invented gunpowder. That's a somewhat artistic impression of how they accidentally discovered gunpowder. They certainly weren't looking for an explosive, they discovered it quite accidentally. And they knew an awful lot about purifying potassium nitrate. They took it all very seriously. And because they had so few substances with which to work, they tried everything in medicine. All right, it caused, became part of gunpowder, but it had also been used traditionally in Chinese medicine. And so if we look at the records, we can find an interesting account of how they used it in medicine. Now, at the beginning of the last century, a quite remarkable explorer called Sir Aurel Stein who was really Hungarian, but he became British, set out to explore the region of Central Asia that is north of Tibet. And this is his journey from Kashgar. He explored this desert here, and he ended up at a place called Dunhuang, which is in Gansu province. This is Tibet here, so it's north of Tibet. And when he got there, he found that a Taoist monk was busy restoring a Buddhist ghetto. It's interesting that they are on very good terms. He was a Taoist monk, but he was restoring a Buddhist ghetto. Better than the West, really. Grotto. Grotto. What did I say? Ghetto. Grotto, sorry. And in the course of this restoration, he discovered a walled-up cave where a lot of manuscripts had been left in about the year 1000. And this is Stein's photograph of that. Well, that's the... And there you see all these, about 20,000 manuscripts. Some of them were medical treatises, and they've been extracted and they have been published. There's a wonderful book edited by Vivian on the medical manuscripts from Dunhuang. And one of them is here. Unfortunately, it's not the original, it's a copy that was made by a physician who owned it, and the original was destroyed during the Cultural Revolution, but that's a copy, and it's been examined by scholars, and there's absolutely no reason to suppose it's not the original. Now, if your Chinese is a little rusty, you may not be able to translate it, so I've given a translation here. Now, it's quite complicated, so I've just taken out the key bits. Is for treating symptoms such as struck by evil, acute heart pains. Well, if you examine this in detail, it obviously must be the condition that we call angina. There's no doubt about it. And the treatment is to take saltpeter and to sprinkle it under the tongue. Under the tongue. Not just take it, put it under the tongue. Is that not a remarkable observation? About the year 800 CE. If saliva is produced, have the patient swallow it, because that's where the nitrate will be, in the saliva. Well, I'm not sure about that. This is a certain cure. Maybe. Maybe. I think they were... It's a characteristic of the older forms of medicine. They tended to be more optimistic than doctors are today. I think they had so little to offer the patient that optimism was part of the therapy. So it is quite remarkable that they should have made this acute observation. So it was nitrite which was bringing about the cure there. And throughout the Chinese literature, there are various references to use of nitrate, of saltpeter, potassium nitrate in medicine. But, as I remarked, we've recently rediscovered this in the 1990s. And here's a quotation from a medical journal called Hypotension, very high-class journal, I think published by the American Heart Association, in which the authors, who come from Queen Mary College, the University of London, very prestigious institution, we advocate the consumption of a high diet in nitrate to protect individuals at risk of adverse vascular events. That's 2008. If you go back to a Chinese medical manual published in the 2nd century, the Shenong Bensao Jing, it says, long-term taking of nitrate makes the patient happy and able to enjoy a healthy life. So here we have things written 1,200 years apart, saying more or less the same thing. There's nothing new under the sun, is there?